Very often in October, in the Soča gorge, the cold that descends along the rocks causes a thick mist at the bottom of the valley. There can be a difference in temperature between the center of Kobarid and the river, so always remember to bring a jacket or sweater that will keep you warm until the fog clears. The area is quite physical, and fishing in this part of the river is reserved for fishermen with a good physical condition. In the morning, the quest for marble trout often begins with streamer fishing upstream. The current, which can be strong even when the river is low, requires fishing with weighted models on intermediate line or even a lead line. I prefer synthetic fibers in these currents because they have the advantage of allowing the streamer to be lighter for the cast and to submerge more quickly. The streamer sculpting helmet described on my YouTube channel is very effective. Do not hesitate to use large size for your streamers. My tackle for the gorges is a 9-foot rod with a 6-foot line. I have 2 reels, a sinking or intermediate line, depending on the water level, and a floating line. The sinking line is used with a streamer, while the floating line allows me to practice with dry flies or nymphs when the fish are active or visible.
Sometimes you like when music chimes. If you're in a thought, not to look it up. Just your is away, do it all day. Need for evasion, crave for freedom. Cry of the youngsters, introduced about life. Get rid of boredom, look for freedom. Run away from your world, let it show the words. We change the song's rain, set your mind to wander around like a dreamer. Need for evasion, crave for freedom. Cry out the youngsters, these are news about life. Send a message, share your rage. Speak the same language, I'll do of your rage. Music for dancing, our songs for telling. Show the people that music's our soul. Need for evasion, crave for freedom. Cry on the youngsters, hear their dreams about life.
Looking for marble trouts on this sector of the Upper Soca leads us to the Lepena, which can shelter very beautiful specimens. This small river also shelters rainbow trouts, brown trouts, and more rarely grays. Dry fly fishing, which is practiced with the hatchings, is not the technique to be favored with the marble trout, which feathers the light and whose big specimens hunt late in the evening until the early morning. On the Lepena, the small size of the river and the transparency of the water allows, however, to have the possibility of fishing a trout which remains active during the day. Upstream of the junction between the Soča and the Lepena, our quest continues through landscapes that are all more extraordinary than the others. The river sometimes rushes into a very narrow rocky gap. The trout are visible, but most of the time, unfortunately, impossible to fish. The access to the river in these extreme conditions is not recommended. Suddenly, the marble trout undulates in front of us. Finally, the first marble trout, thanks to a small imitation of a pale green gabarus, the tying of which will be described to you on my YouTube channel. The trout is almost white, only a few characteristic red and brown dots on its coat allow to distinguish this endemic trout. There are in the same sector some rainbow trouts. However, the marmorata favors the sandbanks near the edge of the break between the deepest part and the one where the current is less strong, while the rainbows navigate in full current and move around a lot. In the currents, a brown fly allowed me to catch many fish. My friend Manu from Fribourg in Switzerland told me about red and brown flies for Soča fishing. He also used these colors in wet flies on rather large imitations with long CDC fibers. On this part of the river, I use a 9-foot rod with a 4-5 line with a W with 5 floating line. In this sector, which is very tormented, it is a weighted nymph with a painted epoxy latex body which allows me to catch the fish which stand in the current. The imitation has to be quickly in action and right in front of the fish at the right depth. This is the nymph on the left of the fly box. On a quieter part of the river on the other side, I spotted a nice trout and chose to change my imitation to a light green gamarus, the same one that had already allowed me to catch a few marble trout in Nympha View. Look at the bottom right part of the screen. You will see the trout approaching during unsuccessful casts. Then, after a failed attempt, it moves forward almost 1 meter to engulf the nymph. There are marble trouts and can reach impressive sizes. During our trip, which was limited to the upper part of the Soča, we caught many trouts, including several marmoratas. To find the most beautiful specimens, we will certainly go to the Upper Soca, where the equipment adapted to be fished with big streamers. But it will be another story.